The text message from my mother was a blade slicing through the ordinary hum of my day. Family meeting. 7 p.m. No excuses. I stood frozen on the cracked sidewalk outside my tiny apartment, staring at the words glowing on my phone. My thumb hovered over the screen, tempted to reply with a question, an excuse, anything to delay the inevitable. But I knew better. In the Alvarez family, defiance wasn't an option, it was a declaration of war. I slipped the phone into my pocket and glanced at the skyline of Seattle, where the Space Needle pierced the gray clouds like a dare. Whatever waited for me at my parents' house tonight wouldn't be good. It never was. I arrived at their pristine Queen and Colonial 10 minutes early, my boots scuffing against the cobblestone path. The lawn was manicured to perfection, each blade of grass standing at attention. A sleek Tesla gleamed in the driveway, a silent testament to the success my family worshipped and that I, apparently, had failed to deliver. My name is Elena Alvarez, the black sheep of a dynasty obsessed with status. While my siblings hoarded degrees and promotions like rare coins, I'd chosen a different road paved with sawdust, solder, and dreams too stubborn to die. My hands, callous from years of crafting, hovered over the brass knocker shaped like a lion's head. Before I could touch it, the door swung open. "You're cutting it close," my mother Sophia said, her voice sharp as the edge of her tailored blazer. Her dark eyes scanned me, lingering on my worn leather jacket and the streak of paint on my jeans. "Everyone's waiting." I glanced at my watch. 6:52 p.m. In our family, anything less than 15 minutes early was a sin. I followed her inside, the familiar scent of lavender and polished wood wrapping around me like a too-tight embrace. The living room was a stage set for judgment. My sister Clara sat on the edge of the velvet sectional, her accountant's briefcase at her feet like a loyal dog. My brother Diego, still in his surgical scrubs, leaned against the armrest, scrolling through his phone with the casual arrogance of someone who just saved a life. My younger sister, Valeria, barely looked up from her tablet, her fingers dancing across the screen, probably closing another deal for her tech startup. My father, Ricardo, stood by the fireplace, hands clasped behind his back, his posture as rigid as the steel empire he'd built. "Sit, Elena," he said, his voice low and commanding, gesturing to a lone armchair positioned like a defendant's chair in a courtroom. The setup screamed ambush. I stayed standing, crossing my arms. "What's this about?" My voice was steady but my pulse wasn't. Clara reached into her briefcase and pulled out a folder, her movements precise. "We've been discussing the family's legacy," she said, her tone clipped, the one she used for boardroom presentations. "And we've made a decision. A necessary one. For the good of the Alvarez name," Sophia added, perching beside Diego, her pearl necklace catching the light like a warning. The folder landed in my hands, heavy with implication. I flipped it open, my eyes skimming the legal jargon. Phrases leaped out like shards of glass. Formal severance of familial ties, relinquishment of inheritance rights, termination of association. My breath caught, but I forced it steady. "You're disowning me?" The words were a whisper testing the air. "It's not personal," Valeria said, finally looking up, her eyes cold. "It's strategy." "Strategy?" I laughed, the sound jagged in the silent room. "I'm your sister. How is this not personal?" "Your choices drag us down," Ricardo said, his voice heavy with finality. "Your projects, this tinkering in your little workshop, it's not a career. It's a liability to the family name." "My business," I corrected, my grip tightening on the folder. "I run a business." "Making knickknacks in a garage isn't a business," Diego scoffed, tossing his phone onto the couch. "Do you know how it looks when my colleagues ask about you? They laugh, Elena." "We gave you everything," Sophia continued, her voice softer but no less cutting. "The best schools, connections, opportunities. And you've squandered it all to play with scrap metal and paint." I looked down at the papers again, my hands steady despite the storm in my chest. Years of their subtle digs, every raised eyebrow, every disappointed sigh, had built to this. They'd never understood me, never even tried. I met their eyes one by one, searching for a crack in their resolve. There was none. "Where do I sign?" My voice was calm, final. Sophia blinked, clearly expecting a fight, tears, something. "Elena," If you just reconsider your path. Where? Do I sign? I repeated, my tone leaving no room for negotiation. Clara pointed to the bottom of the page. Initial here, sign there. The notary's in the study. 10 minutes later it was done. I was no longer an Alvarez, at least not on paper. As I walked out of the study, the weight of their expectations, their judgment, their shame slipped from my shoulders like a worn-out coat. Ricardo stood by the door, his face unreadable. I hope you understand, he said. This is for the best. I paused, my hand on the knob, and turned to face them one last time. You know what's ironic? You're so obsessed with the family name, with success, with how things look. But you have no idea what I've built. You never cared enough to ask. Sophia opened her mouth, but I cut her off. You've made your choice. Now live with it. The door closed behind me with a quiet thud, too soft for the seismic shift it marked. I stepped into the cool Seattle night, my breath visible in the air. My phone buzzed, a notification from my business account. Another order, this one for a custom piece that would push my quarterly revenue deeper into 6 figures. I smiled, unlocking my beat-up van, thinking of the contracts piling up on my desk, a collaboration with a boutique hotel chain, a feature in a national design magazine, a potential partnership with an eco-conscious furniture brand. They thought they'd cut me loose, but they'd only freed me to soar. 3 days later, I sat in my workshop, a converted warehouse by the waterfront surrounded by the chaos of creation. The air smelled of wood shavings and molten metal, my sanctuary of controlled chaos. My best friend, Nia, perched on a stool, her coffee steaming in her hands as she stared at me wide-eyed. You signed the papers? Just like that? She asked, nearly spilling her drink. I nodded, welding a piece of reclaimed steel to a sculpture in progress. They expected me to beg, to cry, to grovel. But I'm done playing their game. Elena, your inheritance, their connections, the family estate, it's all gone. Nia's voice was soft, but her eyes were fierce. What inheritance? I set down my torch and looked at her. A stake in a steel company I never wanted? The privilege of being told I'm a failure every Thanksgiving? I'm better off without it. The door banged open and Leo burst in, clutching his laptop like it held the secrets to the universe. My marketing wizard and unofficial business partner, Leo had a knack for timing. Lena, you need to see this. He spun the screen toward me. Our latest collection just got picked up by Urban Design Monthly. They're calling you the visionary redefining sustainable art. Nia leaned over, her jaw dropping at the numbers on the screen. Holy Lena, is that your revenue? That's just this month. Leo grinned, his fingers already flying across the keyboard. Wait till they see what we've got cooking next. The upcycled furniture line? It's gonna blow their minds. My phone buzzed, another order, then another, piling up faster than I could track. What's happening? I asked, half laughing. Leo refreshed his browser. The article went live an hour ago. We're trending on socials. The green design crowd is losing it over your recycled steel techniques. I walked to the shelves lining the far wall, where my creations stood like sentinels. Hand-forged chandeliers from salvaged copper pipes, wall art sculpted from discarded machinery, tables crafted from storm-felled trees. Each piece was a story of transformation, of taking what others threw away and making it extraordinary. This was my empire, built from the ground up, no Alvarez name required. We need to scale, Leo said, his voice buzzing with excitement. I'm getting inquiries from 2 major retailers already. They want exclusive collections. Nia squeezed my arm. And your family has no idea what they let go. They never looked, I said, picking up a piece I'd finished that morning, a kinetic mobile of sea glass and driftwood that spun in the breeze. Too busy sneering at their artsy daughter to notice she built something real. 7 figures real, Leo corrected, still typing. After these deals, we're projecting 8. My phone rang, an unknown number flashing on the screen. I answered, cautious. Hello. Is this Elena Alvarez? A woman's voice, crisp and professional. This is Rachel Kim from Northwest Innovate. We're doing a feature on rising entrepreneurs in the sustainable design space. And your name keeps coming up. I caught Leo's eye. He gave me a thumbs up. I'd love to hear more, I said, keeping my voice even despite the adrenaline spiking through me. We're fascinated by your story, Rachel continued. Young female entrepreneur, innovative approach to upcycling, skyrocketing growth. Would you be open to an interview? Possible cover story. I thought of my family's faces when they saw me on the cover of a magazine they'd never bothered to read. Absolutely, I said. When were you thinking? After scheduling the interview, I turned to find Nia and Leo grinning like co-conspirators. Northwest Innovate? Leo said, practically vibrating. Do you know what this could do for us? Their features launch careers. Nia hugged me tight. This is it, Lena. Your moment to show them all. I picked up my welding torch again, the weight familiar in my hand. This isn't about them. This is about proving to myself what I'm capable of. But even as I said it, a small, sharp part of me couldn't wait for them to see. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. I hired 2 assistants to keep up with production. Leo negotiated deals that doubled our online reach, and Nia coached me through mock interviews until my answers sparkled with confidence. One evening, as we sorted through a shipment of reclaimed lumber, Nia played reporter, tossing me a curveball. Tell me about your inspiration, she said, mimicking Rachel Kim's polished tone. I held up a half-finished Paisea lamp made from shattered wine bottles and twisted rebar. I find beauty in what's broken, I said, turning the glass so it caught the light. The things people discard, the pieces they overlook, those are the ones with the most potential. My work is about giving them a second life. Nia nodded, her eyes soft. That's it, Lena. That's what makes you different. You're not just making art, you're retelling stories of redemption. My phone buzzed with a text from Leo. Major gallery in Portland wants to meet tomorrow. Exclusive showcase. Be ready. I showed it to Nia, who whooped loud enough to rattle the windows. Look at you, she said, building an empire out of what they called a hobby. Speaking of them, Nia hesitated, her voice dropping. Have you heard anything? Not a peep, I said, picking up my tools again. But they will soon. Everyone will. The Northwest Innovate cover dropped a month later, and the world tilted. My face stared out from newsstands surrounded by my boldest pieces, the headline proclaiming, Elena Alvarez, the alchemist of sustainable design. Orders flooded in, my website crashed from traffic, and Leo hired a crisis team to manage the influx. Rachel Kim showed up at my workshop with a camera crew, thrusting the magazine into my hands. The response is unreal, she said, her heels clicking against the concrete floor. You're trending globally. 3 networks want interviews, and Vogue just called about a profile. Leo burst in, waving his phone. Lena, the Portland gallery deal closed, they want a permanent installation. And a collector in Tokyo just offered 6 figures for your reclamation series. I traced my finger over the magazine cover, the reality of it sinking in. The article laid bare my journey. My creative process, my business model, my meteoric rise. It didn't mention my family's rejection. I'd asked Rachel to leave that out. Some wounds were too raw for public consumption. Then my phone lit up with a text from Clara. We need to talk. Urgent. Family business. My first contact with them in months. I showed it to Nia, who snorted. Funny how you're family again now, she said. Another text followed, this time from Diego, saw the magazine. Impressive. Call me. I ignored it, but the notifications kept coming. Valeria, Mom's upset. You should call her. Then Ricardo. We should discuss your recent success. Dinner Sunday, 7 p.m. Nia read the last one over my shoulder. You're not going, right? I set the phone down and picked up a piece of sea glass, its edges smoothed by years in the ocean. I'm going, I said, my voice steady. But not for their reasons. Sunday arrived like a storm on the horizon. I pulled up to my parents' house in a rented Audi, a small rebellion against their Tesla obsession. The driveway was packed. Clara's BMW, Diego's Porsche, Valeria's hybrid SUV. The whole clan right on schedule. My phone buzzed one last time before I stepped out. A message from Rachel. Your feature just won Regional Story of the Year. Networks doubling down for exclusives. I smiled, tucking the phone away. Perfect timing. Sophia opened the door before I could knock, her face a mask of forced warmth. Elena, darling, she said, moving in for a hug I didn't return. We've missed you. Have you? I stepped past her into the living room, where the family waited, their expressions a mix of unease and calculation. On the coffee table sat a stack of Northwest Innovate magazines, my face staring up like an accusation. "We should talk," Ricardo said, his voice lacking its usual steel. "About the future. About family." I sat in the same armchair they'd exiled me to months ago, smoothing my silk dress bought with the profits of my little hobby. "Yes," I said, meeting their eyes. "Let's talk about the future." The room fell silent, the air thick with unspoken agendas. Sophia poured tea nobody wanted, her hands trembling slightly. Ricardo cleared his throat, a tic I'd learned meant he was nervous. "Your work," Clara began, tapping the magazine. "It's impressive. The revenue figures in the article are remarkable." "Remarkable?" I raised an eyebrow. "I thought it was just tinkering with scrap metal. Wasn't that what you said, Diego?" Diego shifted, his scrub suddenly looking too big for him. "We may have misjudged you." "Misjudged?" I took a sip of tea, letting the word hang. "You disowned me. Had it notarized." "About that," Ricardo stepped forward, his voice softer. "We've been discussing as a family, and we believe it's time to correct that mistake." "Mistake?" I repeated, tasting the word. "Is that what we're calling it?" Clara reached for her briefcase, pulling out a new set of papers. "I've drafted documents to void the severance agreement. We can finalize it today." I leaned back, crossing my arms. "The timing's convenient, isn't it? Right after the magazine, the TV spots, the gallery deals." "What gallery deals?" Valeria asked, her tablet forgotten. I smiled, savoring the moment. "The Portland Art Museum. They're commissioning a permanent installation. Flying me out next week. Private jet." Sophia dropped a teacup, the porcelain shattering on the hardwood. Nobody moved to clean it. "Elena," Ricardo said, his voice taking on the tone he used for closing deals, "there's something else we need to discuss." "The steel company," I finished for him. "It's tanking, isn't it? Tariffs hit you hard, and the shift to automation left you scrambling. Banks aren't lending, and your investors are jumping ship." His face paled. "How did you?" "I have advisors now," I said, cutting him off. "Good ones. They keep me informed about opportunities." "Then you understand," Clara jumped in, her lawyer instincts kicking in. "The family business needs to evolve. Your brand, your sustainability focus, it could be our lifeline." I laughed, the sound echoing in the tense room. "So that's it. You don't want me back, you want my success to bail you out." "That's unfair," Diego protested. "We're family." "Are we?" I stood, walking to the fireplace where family photos lined the mantel, none of them featuring me. 3 months ago in this room you made it clear I wasn't family. You chose your precious name over me. "We were wrong," Sophia said, her voice breaking. "We're trying to fix it." "No," I said, turning to face them. "You're trying to save yourselves. The company's facing bankruptcy. Clara's firm lost its biggest client. Diego's hospital is downsizing, and Valeria's startup is bleeding cash. You're not here for me, you're here for what I've built." My phone buzzed, a text from Leo. "Tokyo Collector up their offer. 7 figures. Call me." I ignored it, focusing on the faces in front of me. "Elena, please." Sophia reached for my arm. I stepped back. "You know what hurts most?" I said, my voice quiet but firm. "If you'd believed in me, even a little, I'd have helped you without hesitation. Family was everything to me. But you showed me what family really means to you: business, status, appearances. So keep your papers and your apologies. I don't need them anymore." I walked to the door, their silence deafening behind me. At the threshold I turned back. "You taught me something valuable when you cut me off. Sometimes the family you choose is worth more than the one you're born into." I left them with their shattered teacup and their crumbling empire, stepping into the night air that felt cleaner, freer. My phone buzzed again this time. "How'd it go?" "Exactly as expected," I texted back. "They want my success, not me." "Their loss," she replied. "Workshop's humming. Pizza's on me if you're up for it." I smiled, starting my car. "On my way. Family dinners are overrated." The next morning I was back in the workshop, knee-deep in a new project, a massive chandelier for the Portland Museum. It's frame forged from old shipyard steel. Nia was sorting orders. Leo was on a call with a distributor, and the air buzzed with possibility. My phone rang Ricardo. I let it go to voicemail, but the message he left stopped me cold. Elena, it's Dad. I don't know how to say this. The company's done. The bank's calling in our loans and we're out of options. But that's not why I'm calling. I saw your magazine cover, your work, it's extraordinary. I was wrong, so wrong about you. I'm not asking for help. I'm asking for a chance to make things right. To be the father I should have been. Please call me. I set the phone down, my hands shaking. Nia looked up from her stack of invoices. You okay? He said he's proud of me, I whispered. First time in my life. Leo hung up his call, catching the tail end. You could save them, you know. Buy the company for pocket change, turn it into something new. Sustainable manufacturing, maybe. Your vision, their infrastructure. I could, I said, picking up a piece of steel, its edges sharp against my palm. But should I? Nia walked over, holding a sketch I'd drawn months ago, a concept for a community art center built on the bones of an old factory. You always said you wanted to build something that mattered. Maybe this is your chance, not just for them, but for you. My phone buzzed. Again, a text from Diego. Mom's in the hospital. Heart scare. She's asking for you. I looked at the sketch, then at the chandelier taking shape before me. Broken pieces waiting to become something more. Call the Portland Gallery, I told Leo. Postpone the meeting. I've got somewhere to be. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and regret. My siblings were scattered across the waiting room, their faces drawn. Clara stood when she saw me, her briefcase nowhere in sight. You came. Where is she? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Room 412, Valeria said, her tablet dark for once. Dad's with her. I started for the elevator, but Diego grabbed my arm. Lena, wait. We need to talk. Not now, I said, pulling free. Family meeting, my terms. Conference room, 10 minutes. They followed me, reluctant but obedient. In the sterile conference room, I laid out a folder of my own blueprints, financials, projections. The steel company's dead, I said, spreading the papers across the table. But I'm starting something new. Alvarez renewed sustainable manufacturing, electric vehicle components, community art programs. I'll clear the debts, rebuild the infrastructure, integrate my designs. Clara's eyes widened at the numbers. This is ambitious. Conditions, I continued, ignoring her. I'm CEO. Non-negotiable. Dad gets an advisory role, no control. You each get shares, but only if you contribute to the vision, not the old Alvarez way. Is this punishment? Diego asked, his voice low. No, I said, picking up the sketch of the art center. It's redemption. But first you own what you did. Clara, you wrote the papers that erased me. Valeria, you called my work a joke. Diego, you couldn't even look at me that night. You chose status over sister. The room was silent, the weight of truth pressing down. Clara spoke first, her voice breaking. I was wrong. I was so caught up in my own failures I couldn't see your success. I was jealous, Valeria admitted, tears in her eyes. You had the guts to be yourself and I didn't. Diego met my gaze, his face raw. I was ashamed. Not of you, myself, for not standing up for you. I nodded, letting their words settle. That's a start. Now, Mom. Ricardo was at her bedside when I walked in, his hand clutching hers. Sophia looked small, fragile, her eyes lighting up when she saw me. Elena, she whispered, reaching out. My girl. I took her hand, feeling its warmth. I'm here, Mom. I'm so sorry, she said, tears spilling over. We failed you. I know, I said, squeezing gently. But we're not done yet. The weeks that followed were a controlled explosion. Alvarez Renewed launched with a splash, its flagship factory opening on the old company lot. My art installation, chandeliers, sculptures, kinetic displays became the heart of the brand, drawing crowds and contracts. The Community Art Center broke ground, funded by my profits and a grant I'd secured through Northwest Innovates Network. My family worked alongside me, not as bosses but as partners, learning to value the vision over the name. One evening, As we unveiled a new sculpture at the Factoria Phoenix rising from molten steel, Ricardo pulled me aside. "You didn't just save the company," he said, his voice thick. "You saved us." I looked at him, at the man who'd once stood by a fireplace and declared me a liability. "We saved each other," I said. "But only because we finally saw the truth." The Phoenix glowed under the spotlights, its wings catching the light, scattering it across the room like hope. Broken pieces transformed into something stronger, something beautiful. Just like family. Just like me.
If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.